Hi, everyone. Welcome to another amazing topic of Conversations with. And today I'm really excited about this conversation. I want to introduce Kim Romaner. Did I say it okay? I'm used
Romaner.
Romaner. Okay. And the reason I wanted to invite you today is because I haven't met anyone more optimistic and more positive about possibilities.
Thank you.
And everything that you do and the way you look at life and the way you've lived your life has opened up a lot of possibilities. And one of the things that I wanted to tell you is that based on what you did when you wrote your book, you inspired me on writing mine. So thank you.
Thank you.
So when I was starting to write my book, I was thinking about you. And yes, you gave me the inspiration that I needed.
I'm glad to start another author on the path.
So now the world is opening up. And before we talk a little bit about your book, the world is opening up, and for some, it's back to normal life. But for others, they have no jobs, or the ones that do have a job don't want to return to the same jobs. Especially, I'm hearing it a lot in the hospitality industry, where there's a lack of people not getting jobs, but the other way around. There's a lot of people that really want people to work for them, and that industry, that job force don't want to go back. And this is why I wanted to talk to you. Because now, after this year, we had a blank page, but a lot of people don't know about how to move forward and how to open up those possibilities. So Kim, welcome.
Thank you very much. And you're absolutely right. I think that we have several situations now where people are, they have the opportunity to go back to work at their old job, but the boss now wants them to come back into the office, for example, and a lot of people don't want to go. And so leaving open for some people the possibility that they can actually stay remote. So the world has changed because of the pandemic. And the bosses, the people who own the companies and run the companies, are seeing that there are new possibilities for their businesses. So some people are seeing that their employees are being just as productive, if not more productive, working from home. They're not having to commute to get their kids picked up and all that kind of stuff. And so they're going to stay remote. Some businesses have actually closed their offices and saved that money. Other companies feel like they want to keep an eye on their employees, or they're going to get some benefits by having the employees all work together. So they want everyone back in the office. And some people have a lot of anxiety about that. You know, we've created this sort of fear thing with the pandemic about being close to other people, especially for folks like introverts who would prefer to work alone and be at home. And so what I would say for folks that are feeling anxious about going back out into the world, to their jobs, being around other people and social occasions, you know, that anxiety is real. A lot of people are dealing with it. And what I would say is, if you feel like that anxiety is starting to interfere with your quality of life or your ability to deal, if you feel like you're stuck in a flight or fight or freeze response, like you might be super hyper about it, or you might not be able to get anything done, please talk to somebody about that. Don't let it impact you to the point where you can't live your life happily. So, you know, some of the things we'll talk about today are about the fact that each of us is creating our own universe in every moment, whether we're conscious of it or not. We are looking through our own lens at the world and assigning values to different things. And so part of what my book talks about is the power of our own observation to change circumstances. And that's all based on science. And so how can we look at things in a way that's going to serve us rather than hold us back? And so I think there's plenty of possibility out there. There's an infinite number of possibilities. And so how can we see those possibilities that right now we've got blinders on and aren't really available to us? So, so Gladys, when you think about this hospitality industry situation, why do you think people don't want to go back to those particular jobs?
I think that one of the things is the restaurants, remember that they're not paid. They're paid very little by the hour, and they depend a lot on tips. And now there's a trend that people are not leaving tips. So basically, I was reading a lot of the reports, and they're making an average of between $2 and $5 an hour.
Right.
So for someone that really needs a job, if they have kids, or they used to make a lot of money, and now $2 to $5 an hour will not get them anywhere. And it's not an easy job. It's long hours, it's not easy. So I think that they are looking into possibilities and changing and knowing that they can do any other jobs.
And I would agree with you. So there you go. Folks are already pursuing other possibilities. And I'm hearing a lot of stories about that. For example, a bartender who was aging and was, really couldn't handle picking up kegs anymore and crates of alcohol and stuff at her age. It was hurting her back. The bar where she worked closed, and then she went on and got herself into a medical coding study program. And so she's going to go off and be a medical coder. And so, we might want to consider this a transformational period for ourselves. If we were to reframe this and say, I don't have to do this anymore. There are lots of other possibilities for me. And what might those be? I think there's lots of opportunity. Now, there's also folks out there who are really, really struggling. And I read a story in the New York Times about a woman in New York City, where it's very expensive to live, who has 3 kids. Her partner left her. So now she has no child care, and her job disappeared. And so she's living on $100 a week, feeding 3 kids. And of course, she's benefiting from the rent exemption because she's not having to pay her rent, which is $1,750 a month. And of course, that rent is piling up. It's not like it goes away because right now she doesn't have to pay it. The landlord's going to expect it once the exemption is lifted. And so where is she going to get that money? And so some of these folks are in real dire straits. But at the same time, this woman is creating her own possibilities. She's found odd jobs for herself to do to supplement the money that she has. She also, through resources provided by the city and the state, was able to find free childcare eventually. And so finding those possibilities, sometimes it takes an effort. You've got to do your research, you've got to talk to a lot of people, but she's one by one, she's solving her problems, and she's moving forward with her life. And so I don't want to downplay the dire circumstances that some people are finding themselves in right now. There are already families that have been evicted, that are out on the street and are looking for those possibilities. And so one of the things that I think it has been very helpful in some communities is it's an organization called the Epidemic of Love. And this was started by Shelley Fielgowski, as you know, Gladys. And it's an amazing effort by Shelley. There are now, everything is run by volunteers. There are communities all over the world. And the purpose of the organization is to have people with resources get connected to people who have nothing or need help. And so you can give as much or as little as you can or as you're capable of. And then the organization, all volunteers, put people together to help those in need. And so Gladys, I know that you started the Pandemic of Love community in Aventura. And so tell us what's going on with that. Talk to us about what's happening with the Pandemic of Love from your perspective.
The Pandemic of Love, it's still going big time. In Aventura, it has slowed down. As you know, in Florida and South Florida, there's nothing happening. Like, all the restaurants are open, jobs are back up, stores are coming up. So I think that there has been a lot of job opportunities and other possibilities. But in other states and in other communities, it has been horrible because the evictions now are expiring. So all these people that not only were not able to pay rent are being evicted. And there's a lot of people that are actually living in their car.
Right.
So it's very sad to hear the stories that not only they have piling up a lot of the debts that they are accumulating, but also where are they going to live? And that creates an added issue, which is the anxiety that you create the kids of not having a home. And I think that needs to be also addressed because of the mental situation that we're all going through.
Right. And so, from a biological perspective, first of all, let me just address that. That's, again, say the Pandemic of Love, which you can find at pandemicoflove.com, is a way for we humans to help each other create more possibilities for ourselves. So if you have resources and you can help somebody figure out a place to live, or feed their families, or deal with their debt situation, get into a shelter, any resources that you know about or can bring to bear for these folks, the Pandemic of Love community can help get it into the right hands. So let's create possibilities for each other. But in addition, as we, oh boy, now I lost my train of thought, that even in those dire straits, there are possibilities available. And again, if we can take the blinders off and focus on the right things, we will see more of those opportunities. So let's just talk about the power of observation for a minute. So quantum physicists, and there's a lot of science in my book, that's why it's called the science of making things happen.
I know, I remember you trying to explain to me about quantum physics, and it is a whole science.
Yes, it is. And so, but the truth is that observation alone, our conscious observation alone, has the ability to modify outcomes. And so this happens at the quantum level of the universe. It's been proven that when we watch subatomic particles, they behave differently than when we're not watching. And it happens up here in our three-dimensional reality we call home here, that when we observe, the way we observe, what we observe, how we observe, will modify outcomes as well. And there's the studies about all that are in the book as well. And so are we using our own power of observation in ways that serve us or in ways that hold us back? So, so there are several powerful forms of observation. First of all, it's focus. You have attention, you have awareness, you have visualization. Are you using your observation correctly in ways that'll serve you? So what are you focused on right now? Now, of course, people who are in real dire straits are focused on where's the next meal going to come from? How am I going to feed my kids? Where are we going to live? Those sorts of things. Even for someone who has a job and is going back to work and is anxious, is that person focused on? Are they worried about people getting too close to them and that making them really uncomfortable and being afraid to say, back off, that they're going to hurt somebody's feelings, or they're going to have that person be angry with them? And so, the things if you focus on the fact that everything's, where could the focus be instead? Instead of that worry, which is doing nothing for you but shutting you down, where could you put that focus instead? Because focus is what allows our subconscious mind to see new opportunities. So just as a silly example, if you're going to buy a new car and you've chosen a make and a model, pretty soon you're going to start seeing that car everywhere, right? And you're going to see it in different colors and all of that, right? So all of a sudden you're going to start noticing those cars. They may have been around you all the time, but you weren't seeing them. And once you are focused on that, they appear like magic into your environment. So if you're focused on the possibility of opportunities, you're going to start seeing those opportunities that are available to you. And so if you are focused on, like, for example, if you're dating someone and then, you think that person is everything, but then, 3 weeks later you break up with them. And meantime, there was somebody else in your circle that was perfect for you that you totally didn't see because you were all focused on this person. And so some of the ways that we can open up our possibilities are by asking ourselves the right questions. If I were going to solve this problem, how could I solve it? And then making yourself a list of the different actions you could take or different ways you could go about doing it. And even thinking about the most outrageous stuff, like it rained manna from the sky, put everything on a piece of paper, create a list in your head about all the ways if this could happen for you. And then once you start creating that list, the list will be the thing that your subconscious mind begins to focus on, and it will be looking for those possibilities in your environment that it wouldn't otherwise be seeing. So we want to get ourselves out of that downward spiral of thought and lift ourselves up with the way we're looking at our own situation. So what are you focused on? And is that focus serving you or holding you back? And then are you keeping up with your awareness in the environment? Are you keeping track of what you're thinking, but then are you also keeping aware of what's happening in your environment? Maybe you might overhear a conversation about somebody who got a resource that you didn't even know was available. You can go up and talk to that person and ask them how they got wind of that or how they could get in touch with that resource. So, you have to open yourself up to those possibilities. So as I said, we create our own universe every day, in every moment, whether we're aware we're doing it or we're not. And so what universe are you creating for yourself? And so then visualization is another great tool. If you create your list of if I could solve this problem, how would I do it? And then you visualize those answers. For example, a social worker comes to visit you out of the blue. And so you envision that social worker visiting you, or you reaching out to the Red Cross, for example, or the Salvation Army, or the local unemployment office. And then imagining in your mind, going through, having that actually happen to you and what it would feel like and how it would work out. That visualization trains you for that opportunity, prepares you for that opportunity, just like visualization prepares an athlete to do their sport. And if you were to ask an athlete would tell you that visualization is the most powerful tool they have in their toolkit. And so I know lots of people who have visualized their way into great success. And so we can even use it when situations is not so great to lift us up to a new level.
I'm going to tell you an example. Many, many years ago, when I opened Indigo Events, like a few years after, my daughter was working with me, and I said to her, I would love to work with the Disney Institute. Like, that would bring brand, it would bring recognition. I would love to do that. And I remember it was a Friday. Monday morning, we get to the office and she says, you got a call from this person from the Disney Institute. Did you call them already? And I go, no, I didn't. I didn't. And so I called them up and they actually looked me up to see if I could help them promote their next seminar.
Wow.
And
That's great.
so like you said, it was, I don't know, the power of visualization, of calling it in, or my wish list, or something. But there's some people that at this point are looking at it so dark. Like I call it change. You call it look into a different perspective. I call it changing your glasses and taking your dark glasses off and putting your clear glasses so you can see in color.
Well, and so that's one of the places where my book came from, was that I was in a very dark spot, and two kernels, I think, started the book. First was that I attended a conference of the National Institute for the Clinical Application of Behavioral Medicine, because that's what geeks like me like to do, crazy stuff like that. And as I was in those rooms listening to these scientists talk about the latest discoveries about the brain and our neurology and our biology, I was like, wow. I mean, nobody knows about this stuff, but if you could get this out into the general populace and make them aware of these discoveries, they could actually apply them in their own lives to create change. So that was one thing. That, you know, I'm a very practical person. I'm a scientist, you know, so I want to know, why should stuff work? And so that was the beginning of my quest to discover more about the science of turning possibility into reality. And then I had a time in my life when a whole conflagration of negative events happened for me, and I was in a very dark time. And you know, I had a horrible accident, my marriage split up, all kinds of things happened. I didn't have any disability insurance. I was self-employed. I had a 2-year-old son. And so, I needed to know how I could access more of my own possibilities. And so, as I said, being this kind of science-oriented person, I wanted to know if there was a science to actually accessing possibility and turning it into reality. I mean, if you look around the room that you're sitting in right now, every item in that room is something that was just an idea in someone's head, and now it's a real thing. So how does that happen? How does something that's just a thought in your mind become reality? And there is, in fact, a science to how that happens. The universe has a whole methodology that you can tap into, but I think humans are the best examples of how to turn possibility into reality, or as a quantum physicist would say, amplify possibility into reality. And so how does that process work? And so I began a quest to discover the science, and there were actual scientific discoveries out there that, again, most people don't know about. 5 of them are described in this book, and then they fit together in a process that I've termed the possibility amplification process. And so the power of observation is the very first discovery in that book, where we've shown that we can modify things that happen at the subatomic level of the universe and in our real world just by the way we observe them. And so the very first thing I would suggest anybody do is to create a vision of what you would like to have happen. So you have to have a destination to go for. So if you want to have something positive to focus on, create a destiny that appeals to you. So moving back into your work environment in a comfortable way. What does that look like? Picture that in all of its detail and make it as sensory laden as you can. So what does it look like? What does it feel like? What does it sound like? And then focus on that in a visualization during your meditations, and fill yourself up with that positive imagery to change your biology. If you've ever read Dr. Bruce Lipton's book, The Biology of Belief, he talks about how the way our thoughts are happening in our brain can either shut our bodies down or open them up. And when all of our resources are being funneled into our emergency systems, because we're in that fight or flight or freeze kind of paradigm, then nothing else can go on. There's no room for creativity. There's no room to see other opportunities. I mean, we have these blinders on really tightly. So you need to open yourself up with that vision, allow yourself to think about possible positive outcomes that could happen, so that your body can go back into a relaxed mode, into a building mode, into a creative mode, so that you can see more of the opportunity available, and then have an ability to act on that. So that's one of the ways you can use the power of observation.
But that's really amazing. Kim, where, I remember that I did an exercise with you a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
That it was about time, that we don't have any time, that it was, that we don't do anything through the day. And I remember that you had me write in a paper what I did the day before. And I filled, and you said that to put every single detail of what I did, even if it was put the clothes in the laundry, every single detail. And I remember clearly, and this was a long time ago, that I was on my third page. And you came to me and I said, I haven't even looked at that, but you told me you haven't done anything and you're already filling up 3 pages. So
yeah, that, go ahead.
Can you tell us a little bit of how it helped me a lot to see that I really did a lot of things? Because sometimes you feel that you're unproductive, that you haven't done anything. And I think that was the stage where I was, that I felt that I woke up in the morning and night came and I wasn't productive at all. Nothing was getting done.
Right. And so in this pandemic and post-pandemic time, many people have felt completely disempowered, that somehow all this stuff that's happening is their fault. So they lose their job, not, because the restaurant closed down, for example, and they are looking for a new one, but there isn't a new one, no matter how hard they look. And so they blame themselves. And so they start they start thinking of themselves in negative ways if they weren't already. I mean, we all have that negative voice in our head and it's never gonna go away. But how do we counteract that? How do we counteract the impact of feeling as if we're not getting anything done or that we're not doing what we need to do, and stop having those negative conversations which are shutting us down? And so this is based on a science called the inverse Zeno effect, which again is something from quantum physics, which basically is about measurement. It says that the way we measure something and the frequency with which we measure will determine whether we slow something down or speed it up. So what we measure will determine what the outcome is, and the frequency with which we measure will determine whether we slow it down or speed it up. So, and that is, again, all science, and it happens up here in the real world too. So how can you measure yourself in positive ways? And so this is called the inverse Zeno report. And basically what you do is you think about at the end of the day, you think about all the things you did during the day that were a contribution, no matter how small. And you brushed your teeth, yay, anything that you did that was a benefit to you, to your friends and family, to the world, write it down to the smallest thing, because you give yourself hell for the smallest things. So why not give yourself credit for the smallest things? And so in workshops where I've done this, as you mentioned, Gladys, I've had people say, wow, I thought I was a real slug yesterday, but look, I did all this stuff. And it changes your own perception of yourself, that you actually are contributing a lot as a human being in this world, and that you are taking care of what needs to be taken care of. And so if you do it consistently, and I would ask anybody listening to this to do this over a period of like 2 weeks every day, write it down, everything that you did that was a contribution, and give yourself credit for those things, and really sort of absorb it into yourself that, yeah, I'm getting stuff done, and I am working really hard, and I am trying to solve this problem. Then that begins to change the way you feel about yourself, and you're going to start feeling more energized when you wake up in the morning. You're going to start feeling like you know what your mission is in the day. You're not going to wake up and go, oh, here we are again, same old thing. What am I going to do now? You're going to realize that you have things ahead of you that are going to be positive movements in the right direction, because you can see yourself, you've logged it, you've seen yourself doing it, and you know that you're creating change. So it's a very powerful tool. And so I'm telling you what my workshop participants tell me are the impacts that they have as a result of doing this exercise. So if you can, do it for a couple of.
No, continue. I wasn't shutting you up. I was shutting my reminder.
Gotcha. I know my phone's binging like crazy over here. So just consider that the way you measure yourself is going to have an impact on your mental health. And it's going to have an impact on how you wake up feeling every day. And so take some time to measure yourself in positive ways. And then in my case, I would then send my list. Like I would open an email. You can do this anywhere you want, in a journal, on a random piece of paper, on in your computer. I like to open up an email and write everything as I'm going through the day that I've done that was a positive contribution. It's good to do it, to notice it and to be aware of it right as it's happening, as well as just at the end of the day. And then I would send that email to my husband, who would then read it and go, wow, honey, you're really slaying those dragons. So, I would get the pat on the back from him, and then, my own pat on my own back. And it just changes up the way you feel in general about everything. And it gives you a much more positive view of the world. So that's one tool. Another tool I would talk to you about is again, quantum physics is called decoherence, which is basically how, if you're going to change your life, right? If you want a different future from your current present, you have to break the present in order to make room for the future. You can't keep doing the same things over and over again and expect different results, right? That's decoherence. So we have to decohere. Coherence is when everything's all together. So if our current situation is all moving in the same direction, we want to break it up because we don't want that happening anymore. We have to decohere it. So how do we do that? And to break things up, to break our future, break our present in order to make room for a different future, we need to decide what it is that we're going to create, and then put lots of information about that out into the universe. So if we want, let's say, we want a new job, right? So we want to start talking about that with people. We want to put as much information in as many different modalities as we can. So we want to talk about it with people as much as we can. We want to tell people that we're getting a new job as if it's happened, right? We want to write about it, whether that's in our journal, if we want to put blog posts on, if we want to write on Facebook that we're looking and this is what we're looking for, if we want to update our LinkedIn profile, how can we write about it? How can we, visualize it? What are the mental things that we can do? How can we think about it, that it's already happening, that we're finding that job? So as much information as you can put out there, start making phone calls to companies, start visiting businesses that you'd like to work for, giving them your resume in person. Obviously, posting resumes online, sending them to particular companies, applying for particular jobs online. Although I think job hunting has become a totally different thing
Totally.
right now. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you drop your resume in a black hole and you never hear about it again. So
there are algorithms that just take out some part, and it's very difficult to get an actual interview.
That's right. And so,
you're being judged by a computer, by an algorithm.
That's right.
Not by who you really are.
Right. And so there are experts out there who know how to tag those algorithms in the appropriate way. And if you did a little research on Google, there's people that are pretty affordable who can help you to put your application into a correct template with the right keywords that will help your resume to be noticed. So if you can do that research and find that person and redo your resume, you're going to get better results. And I know that has happened for several people that I know. So doing that research, anything you can do to break up what's happening now and do things differently than you've been doing it. So if the end of the day, your idea of a celebration was to grab a glass of wine and sit on your couch, maybe instead you want to celebrate in a different way. Anything you can do to break the present and make it different than it has been, do that. So maybe you're going to go out and do a run around the block, or you're going to go dancing with your partner, or you're just going to dance in your living room by yourself. or you're going to, I don't know, pretend to be an animal with your kids or whatever, anything that kind of gets you out of your mindset and out of your typical routine is going to be a good thing in order to help you make room for a different kind of future than the present you have now.
Kim, this has been amazing and our time is over.
Okay.
So can you tell us, please show the book again?
There you go.
And where can we get it?
Amazon, and there's also an audio version of it on audible.com.
Perfect.
And yep, and you can visit my website at possibilitiesamplified.com to find out more about me.
So thank you. And I think you just gave me a very good idea for our next conversation, and having somebody show us how to fight the algorithm so that you can get your resume out there. But in the
That's a great idea.
In the meantime, we all need to take our dark glasses off, put our shiny glasses, and look at the bright sun. And Kim, thank you so much. It was a pleasure. Everybody, stay tuned for our next conversation and stay safe. Have a good day.